For years, camera sensors have moved in small steps, solid, steady, incremental. Then a tiny gimbal camera showed up with a sensor technology almost nobody else has in the market yet, and it might just be the breakthrough we've been waiting for. Why this is interesting with the 17 stops is it uses a new kind of technology called LOFIC technology. This stands for lateral overflow integration capacitor. So basically what it does, it integrates very bright and very dark areas in a single capture. So basically it's not like the typical dual gain. The claim is 17 stops of dynamic range. We ran a preliminary test, and here's why this could matter far beyond one pocket camera.
For years, we've been saying that we are really waiting to see a breakthrough, because in a way it got a bit boring. Everything is good, everything is more or less on the same level. So if this sensor can move into larger size and not only 1 inch, maybe this is the breakthrough that we've been waiting for.
But that's not the only thing that caught us off guard this week. Apple just did something it almost never does. The MacBook Pro with 1 terabyte now costs $1,999 instead of $1,699, so $300 price increase overnight. The iPad Air with 128 gigabytes moves from $599 to $749. That's a significant price jump. Plus a full-frame cinema lens for under $300. Yes, really. Let's get started.
This is Focus Check, the weekly Cinetech podcast.
Welcome to episode 123 of Cine Focus Check. Hi, Johnnie.
Hello, Nino. How are you?
I'm good. And it's your last time here before you leave for Japan.
Yeah, but I live only for 2 months. Don't worry, I'll be back.
I know, but it's, nice to be still able to talk in person. Now, Let's quickly just do a summary of what we're going to talk about today. So, talk about a little bit about the Malta event of DJI that I just came back from on the Osmo. What is it? Osmo Pocket 4P. Yeah, it's confusing. And yeah.
No, now I know. Now I know why you have such a nice tan. You've been to Malta, huh?
Well,
the good life.
It's hotter here actually in Vienna.
That's true.
So I don't know. Yeah, we'll just I share what I can, what I'm allowed to, because we're still under embargo, and it's the whole saga with DJI this time, unfortunately. We'll quickly mention again your Leica SL3-P review, which we talked about already last week. But in the meantime, we also published a video version of your review. We'll talk about these super affordable 7 Artisans Dream Series lenses. How much are they?
Depending on the focal length, the highest price is $299.
That's for a full cinema lens.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Okay. We'll talk about Apple Creator Studio updates that actually add a lot of new features to Final Cut Pro. Also Motion and the other apps in the bundle, and talk about what's actually changed. We'll also talk about Apple raising prices on MacBooks and iPads specifically as the AI memory crisis reaches consumer hardware. We'll talk about our written review of the XPPen Pilot Pro. It's like a tongue breaker, which is a versatile editing controller for a lot of different NLE systems. We'll talk about the LIGHTFRAMER PRO app, which turns your iPhone into a cinema viewfinder with sun tracking. We'll talk about the acquisition of MRMC by MultiDyne. We reported about the fact that Mark Roberts' motion control was up for sale before. Now, the MRMC brand remains, but it doesn't stand for Mark Roberts' motion control anymore, which is funny. It's going to stand for MultiDyne Robots motion control in the future. So we'll talk about this asset sale. So they salvaged that company. We'll also talk about the acquisition of Topaz Labs by Adobe and the AtomOS 12.7 update for AtomOS recorders. We'll talk about ARRI introducing the LUKA Unreal Engine plugin and what that actually is. A small update to DaVinci Resolve 2101. And a very interesting piece of software by, I think, a German company, AtomOS, called rsv.repair, which is a free recovery tool for Sony RSV files. And that got so much interest on our social media. I got like hundreds of shares and comments because a lot of people seem to suffer from the problem. I've had the problem before, and it's saving your Sony files. Also, new KIPON drop-in variable ND PL mount adapter, which is made to work with PL lenses that have protruding elements, which is great. And the iFootage Shark Slider Pico Pro, now released with a higher payload. And last but not least, also firmware updates to the Canon EOS C50, C80, and C400. But should we start with the Malta event?
Yes, please. I mean, we were invited to Malta for a DJI event, and that was actually the first time that we had the chance to play and look in person at the DJI Osmo Pocket 4P. You were there to represent us. Were you impressed with the organization and actually overall, of course, the camera, because it's more about the camera gimbal itself?
First of all, yeah, very well organized event. A lot of people were invited. Must have been like 40 to 50 people. Like I would say a third press like us, and then 2/3 influencers, creators. Met a lot of new people that I hadn't known before. A lot of people from Germany and the UK specifically, very talented creators and also press people. And just very interesting to also put names to some faces that you know from online. Like always good to be at these events to make also new connections, possibly for future collaborations on reviews and reels and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And well organized by DJI. Basically, it was one full day of half day of presentations where they showed us stuff. Now, disclosure here, unfortunately, this honestly is something that right now everybody who attended and everybody who got access to this before kind of suffers from. The embargo for the review is still unclear. It's probably end of July. It is frustrating because the Osmo Pocket 4P has now been released in China, and a few days ago it was also released in the rest of Asia. So it's now out in Asia, and we're still not able to, share our full thoughts. I mean, I'm still working with it anyway, but still,
but that's a good thing. It gives you some time.
It gives me time, but it's also, it's a bit frustrating. A lot of the people who attended already had it for weeks and months, and it's a bit of this weird kind of cat and mouse game between DJI and Insta360 for the rest of us and for the audience. Not great, but that's how it is. At least, it gives me time to familiarize myself more with it. And also, we don't have ND filters yet. We will get some ND filters from Freewell to work with these, for example, and probably also Tilta. So, it's challenging. But anyway, we are allowed to share some footage that I took with it. Now, I have to say, what really surprised me is that this 17 stops claim of dynamic range, which is only available on the main 20mm 1-inch camera using a new log called D-Log2, seems to be holding up. Like, because we've discussed this before when we talked about both of them, we haven't concluded a lab test yet. We're actually working on making it work for the lab test. Just for the audience to understand, the challenge here is that it's such a wide angle lens, because basically we need to move this very close up to the IMA test chart. And when you do that, you get some internal reflections, because basically the light that the chart emits is reflecting inside the lenses, and that can kind of compromise the result, because it gives stray light across what we record. So we need to come up with a way to position it in a way that this doesn't happen, but still have an accurate result. And it's very, very tricky. And of course, with our lab test being a scientific test, we need this to be accurate. Like we have to minimize the chances to actually have failed test results because of stray light, for example.
But we are working on it. We will find a solution, especially that we know more and more cameras. For example, the GoPro camera, for example, many are asking us about dynamic range of the new GoPros, and of course here the Luna camera and the DJI one. So we are very determined to find a way to do this and do this right, so you guys can compare. Obviously, it will not be comparing like to mirrorless or DSLRs, because it makes no sense. We have to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges.
Exactly.
So,
So basically, why this is interesting with the 17 stops is it uses a new kind of technology called LOFIC technology. Actually, let me look up what the abbreviation stands for. This stands for lateral overflow integration capacitor. So basically, what it does, it integrates very bright and very dark areas in a single capture. So basically, it's not like the typical dual gain that we've seen from various manufacturers now implemented. It's kind of the standard for, like achieving higher dynamic range is dual gain. But we know dual gain always comes at the expense of rolling shutter. So we will have a higher rolling shutter result. Now, this technology is completely new, and as far as we're aware, there is no other camera in the market that has implemented it yet. There is a company called OmniVision that released a sensor in April, I think, that is around 1 inch that has this technology. Now, of course, we don't have any confirmation what sensor the Osmo Pocket 4P uses, but it could be theoretically this one. We also know the Leica sensor that Sony has in the works with that we reported about for smartphones, works with the same technology. So we can expect this technology to come into more devices, probably also sizes in the future, but it's just something to be aware that this seems to be really impressive. We haven't done a full lab test yet. Florian just did a preliminary test, and the EMA test result was impressive. I'm not going to name numbers here, just to but it was close to the manufacturer's claims. Now, of course, we haven't done the latitude test yet, and we will do a proper dynamic range test on this to really put it in perspective. But from what we've seen, there is something new going on that seems to be working quite well. And if you look at some of the footage that I've taken in Malta when we were walking around Medina, this medieval city, and also Valletta, the capital city, I tried to do as much high contrast shots with the sun and very deep shadows in the same image, and it seemed to hold up, like from what I've seen with the D-Log 2. First impressions, D-Log 2 is darker, everything is significantly darker than D-Log. You can switch between. You don't have D-Log 2 on the telephoto one, on the 60mm. That's a bit unfortunate, of course, but you still have D-Log. Of course, there's conversion LUTs available from DJI. And
let me just summarize quickly the sensor topic, because that's very important. For years, we've been saying that we are really waiting to see a breakthrough, because in a way it got a bit boring. Everything is good, everything is more or less on the same level. So if this sensor can be in any way kind of move into larger size and not only 1 inch, maybe this is the breakthrough that we've been waiting for.
Let's see. I mean, I'm very curious, of course, how the latitude will hold up. We know from experience that those small cameras in general add a huge amount of noise reduction because of the small sensor size, because the noise would be too large from a small sensor like that. But let's see how the latitude will hold up as well.
So you just said that both lenses, actually 2 lenses, but both are actually not the same, not in terms of focal length, but in terms of the sensor behind them and how to implement and work with them. So
only the 1 inch has a LOFIC technology.
Okay.
The 3X, I don't know the specs off the top of my head. Maybe I'm not even allowed to share, but it's not the same sensor. It's a smaller sensor.
But what does it mean when you shoot and then when you edit? You have to apply different picture profiles?
Yeah, in shooting, I have to say it's a little bit annoying that you have a button that switches between the two focal lengths. If you have set the main camera to D-Log 2, you can also set it to D-Log, but if you have to set it to D-Log 2, you cannot press that plus button. You have to set up a second user preset that you can also switch to with the other button that has a D-Log, and then you can switch. So it's just like a usability thing. I hope, like they can simplify this so it simply switches automatically between D-Log 2 and D-Log when you switch between the two, but that's a small thing. Yeah, it basically, the camera internally records H.265, and there's a selection of high and low bitrate and so on. That, again, all of this will be in the full review. I have to be careful what we can share here yet. But
in terms of usability, without going into specifications, were you impressed? Did you like working with two lenses or?
Of course, it's the tracking works really well now, also on the long lens. So face tracking works really well. All those things seem trustworthy. I'll dive into this deeper as well. But it feels like really the Pro version of the Osmo Pocket 4 in many ways. And personally, I have an issue with a small screen in general with these devices. Of course, you can connect your phone. That's been an issue also with the Pocket 3 and Pocket 4 for me, because there's a limited amount of control you have over your image when you see it like this. Even when it comes to I'm very used to working with gimbals. I'm very used to walking with gimbals and have stable shots. I looked at some of the footage that I took with it, and it wasn't as stable as I expected it, not because the stabilization is any different from the larger gimbals, probably. It's more like I can't judge my own movement as well. That's an issue I have. But of course, this is, like considering it's that small, it's just amazing the amount of quality you get into this. And also, we don't have final pricing yet because it's only released in China and Asia, of course. But
it will not be released in the US. Again, this is something that we have to be clear.
It will not be released
under the name DJI.
Exactly. We already know that there is something from this extra brand. I'm just gonna put it out there. That's gonna be called Extra Pocket 4 Pro, whatever. It's very similar. It looks a little bit different. The screen folds up sideways, actually. It's not exactly the same. So it is different. And so we, this might or might not be similar. So, but there's already Brandon Lee, I saw, already walked with this and posted something on Instagram with it. So, yeah. Also, we got in touch with Insta360, of course, because, it is interesting for people to put those side by side. And we got the Luna as well now, which is the Luna Ultra. 8K sensor, also 1 inch, as we talked about before. We will put those side by side in the lab test. Definitely, I will do a full review on the Pocket 4P. Not sure yet about the Luna Ultra, but for the lab test for sure, we will put them side by side and see the differences here also. There is a nice video by our friend Philip Bloom, who already did a comparison between the two, kind of avoiding all the topics he's not allowed to talk about on the DJI yet. But there is a very nice video from Philip where he dives into the depth of both and comparing them. So I can really recommend you to watch that. And also the issues that people seem to have with the Luna Ultra when it comes to there's one software bug which is very odd when it comes to ISO handling. But yeah.
What is the difference in focal length of the tele lens between the two? Because I think it's not the same.
I don't know yet, honestly. The Luna literally just arrived yesterday, so I can't
one
really
is like a 50 or 80, and the other one is 120, millimeters.
Yeah, might be. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. My audience might know more than me, because I literally haven't touched it yet. So I don't want to say something wrong.
I just remember from iPhone, if the tele is too much, it's less usable in a way. So yeah, let's hope that
that's true. But yeah, I can't tell you, honestly. I can't tell you. But I think the focal length on the Pocket 4P are great. I'd almost rather have a 50 millimeter instead of 60. That's always the same. But it's of course better, as you said, as on most smartphones where the long telephoto is just often, for consumers might be fine, but like for proper portrait shot. 50 is just always nice, and it's a good combination, I think.
I already found a significant difference between them. Look at the feet,
Yeah,
like how to.
I don't know how they came up with these weird feet for the Insta. I mean, this is so flimsy, and the first time I took them out, it actually came out, so I had to fiddle it back in. So that's definitely an afterthought. But it does have a 1/4 inch back there, so I can just put the DJI or other feet there. So you're not really,
Okay.
you don't have to use that.
Okay,
But it's built. The good thing is it's built into this, so you can just fold it,
Yeah.
and then it's gone. So it's not like an extra piece. Yeah.
I'm
so.
really looking forward for your review and, of course, the comparison between the two cameras as a professional person, but also as a family member, because I
Yeah.
really want to know. I think maybe we should even run a poll in the next, or by the time that actually the podcast is out, run a poll and find what people are preferring to use as the family vacation camera. Like for me, the Osmo Pocket 3 was excellent. I ended up a vacation without getting divorced. I don't know what about you guys. I don't know if your family really likes when you kind of put a mirrorless camera in front of the face, but with those small ones, it's always seamless, and it seems like the family don't really care.
Well, I think it's safe to say that this is really a category that will really explode over the next few years, because we know that the Osmo Pocket 3 has been the most popular DJI product ever. Out of all products they've ever sold, that's what I'm hearing. This has been the most popular, which is why there's so much, like all those
Fierce
lawsuits
fight,
between DJI and Insta360. You
course.
completely understand how much of their, like probably sales hinges on these products. And I think it's really replacing a lot of other things. It's eating into the action cam market share massively. We've talked about the GoPro troubles and so on. And there's also, by the way, I saw a review from Matti Hapoya on the GoPro Mission 1, and he made a really, really good point, which is this. It's not like it used to be, where an action cam was the small camera. I think the market for this has simply changed over the last few years, and a lot of it is now covered by cameras like these. You have, of course, those pocket cameras and also other small cameras that replace a lot of use cases where you used to use the classic action camera, right? So that's, I think, a very good point, and the sales numbers support that completely. I think we will probably see a lot of variations of this kind of idea from various manufacturers in the next couple of years, and I wouldn't be surprised if also some existing camera manufacturers will enter this space, because I think there's still a lot of room for improvement. Like even if it's maybe interchangeable lenses with a small camera head, whatever it is, basically the integrated gimbal with different focal length as a handheld device. It's kind of, like there's like we had this poll recently, which we talked about last week, which was very popular, on the Ronin 4D successor, which is of course a high-end professional device, but in a way this is a successor because it really integrates a gimbal with a camera in a handheld device, essentially. But I can see this being a little bit larger, a little bit more professional, maybe interchangeable lenses. Who knows? I think a lot is gonna happen in this space.
Maybe you remember, I think like 5 or 6 years ago, even Benro had the Benro Snoppa.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was Snoppa V-Mate. And that camera looked like the DJI Osmo Pocket.
I completely forgot about this. Yeah, you're right.
So obviously there is a way still to use the actual size and the actual design, maybe without being sued. But and this one disappeared. It's a pity Benro never continued to develop that product, but it's good to know that more can be done.
We also talked about before, there is an original Osmo, right? There is a DJI Osmo, which was really like a larger thing. People completely forgot about this. But this is the Snoppa. I completely forgot about this.
But this is about 5-6 years ago. And I wonder actually.
It really looks like a Osmo Pocket.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's like, and there was.
It doesn't have a gimbal though, is it? Is that a gimbal?
I think the head itself is gimbalized.
Okay.
I just invented a new word in English, gimbalized. But I really wonder if.
Very funny.
if it's still being sold. Yeah, you know what?
It is on their website, and you can buy it.
But no longer available at B&H, and I have no clue.
But you can buy it on their website.
Good.
So should we get one just to compare? Yeah, but interesting. Yeah, and then also let me just look up the original DJI Osmo.
This will be very difficult to find. I can tell you right now, it's hidden somewhere. Really, it's really literally hidden. Good luck to you, and unless you want to waste another 35 minutes of the podcast to look for it, I would. You can do this while I'm talking about the Leica.
Yeah, you can talk about the Leica.
Okay.
No, that's fine. Yeah, let's keep it here. But anyway, the market has changed, and I think we'll see more devices like this. And now a quick commercial break. This episode of Focus Check is brought to you by Hollyland and the Lark A1. If you've been meaning to start capturing better audio on your phone but didn't want to wrestle with menus or pairing, this is the one. The Lark A1 is a wireless lav built for people just getting into this. You plug the USB-C or lighting receiver straight into your phone, clip it on the mic, and you're recording. No app required, no Bluetooth, and no setup ritual. It is tiny, 8 grams, under a centimeter thick, so it disappears on a collar. You get real 48 kilohertz 24-bit audio, a charging case that holds up to 54 hours, and up to 200 meters of range line of sight. There's a Lark sound app if you want to dig into gain and EQ later, but you genuinely don't need it to get going. This is the mic for grabbing everyday moments. The walk and talk, the quick piece to camera, the trip you didn't want to take a full kit for. Just know it's a phone mic and not a full camera rig. The Hollyland Lark A1 starts under $70. Follow the link in the show notes to check it out. And now back to the show. Let's go back to the Leica review. So Johnny, we talked about all your findings last week already. Now you shared the video review. First question, when I watched it actually, why is it 4:3?
I decided to combine and do open gate to show the capabilities of open gate, because I filmed myself with the camera.
Because I didn't know you filmed yourself with the camera. I was like, why is this?
So you actually probably only watched the video without sound.
No, I watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you mentioned it? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Maybe not strong enough, obviously.
Yeah.
But the idea was to do, because I like this combination of 4:3 and anamorphic. Worked quite well. I filmed myself with the camera. I also wanted to check how well the autofocus works. And I have to say that it works really well. You just have to enable face detection.
Okay.
Otherwise, it also went to my hands and so on. But if you enable face detection, really no problem whatsoever. I encourage you guys just to look at the video, not to see my face to radio, but more like to look at the actual footage that I took. As I said before, I was really planning to do a mini documentary, but unfortunately my subject of filming dropped out at the last minute the night before. So I literally took some footage next to my home, and some friends volunteered to be protagonist, and so I could point the camera to them. And I'm still very much behind my claim that the color science here is very nice. I really like what they produced together with the LUT. They have 2 new LUTs, Cine and Pure. Both of them are free to download. By the way, guys, just a little hint, try those LUTs on your Panasonic cameras. I think you'll be surprised.
Is it going to look the same?
I'll leave it to you to try. But I even Panasonic footage that I tried with this LUT looks really great. But they did a good job here, and those LUTs are for free. Low light capabilities is quite impressive, although in my footage I didn't really want to I have some footage, I just didn't put it, that I went really crazy high and you can see stuff very easily. But here in my low light footage, I didn't want to compromise the actual feeling of the place I was, and I wanted to show like in between, and the low light is fine. So autofocus is good, low light is good, color science, I really, really like it. It's a bit heavy, of course, but that's a robust camera from Leica. And one thing that, of course, to notice, I've been filming myself 4:3, 8K in our studio. It was quite hot, and the camera kept shutting off on me. Every few minutes I had to let it cool. That's where the IP54 seal is actually worked against me in a way, because of course if the camera is sealed, it's not so easy to vent out the heat in a way. But this is something to take into consideration when you're working. Funny enough, when I was working outside, I didn't have this issue, but at the same, I have to say that I didn't really shoot long takes, and of course when I filmed myself, I had I took long takes. One thing that you will find in the video, which I find also interesting, I added a clip from a review that I did of the original SL Type 601 camera from 2015. And the reason I did it because this is something that really stuck in my mind. Every time that we talk to, that I talk to Leica, the dear people at Leica, I always remind them how nice and organic the footage looked like, and you can really see this is something that I'm craving for, like have an organic footage. And the main difference is that was their own sensor, unlike today that they are sharing sensor with Panasonic, and there was simply no noise reduction. This I could verify with the person who is now in pension, but he was the main engineer at the company, and he said, Johnny, no noise reduction. And that's one of the reasons that the footage looks really great. 2015, still 4K. The funny thing, if you look at the ungraded footage, it looks completely milky, and you go like, how I'm gonna save it? But at that time, we used our own LUT, and later they developed a proper LUT for it, and the footage looks very nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. It's 11,
Could you believe that
11
years ago, and it looks like, and sometimes when we are rushing and trying to push forward and reviewing so many cameras, we forget that at the end of the day, there are some really, really good cameras out there that are being, in a way, neglected, deserted, or just forgotten.
And it makes you wonder, actually, you know, does it make sense to upgrade all the time?
Maybe not so fast. I mean, it depends. I also want to say one more word about the lens that I used. Of course, for the 4x3, I used for the 3x2, I used Open Gate. I used a Panasonic Lumix, a Panasonic Leica lens that I had with me. And for the anamorphic footage, I used the Atlas Mercury 42mm 1.5 squeeze T2.2. Really nice lens, especially if you want to accompany a camera like this. I really like the picture aesthetic that it produces.
Yeah. Very nice. So check it out if you haven't seen it yet. It might have been missed on the website because we added it to the written review after the written review was already released. So go back to that article. We'll put the link in the show notes again. Let's move on to a new series of lenses by 7 artisans. They just released the Dream series. Manual focus lenses with 35, 50, and 75 millimeter T1.5 full frame for EL, Z, and RF mounts. Now, I mean, they look like a lot of modern, I would say, a little bit reminiscent of some DCO film lenses, I would say, similar. Design is really nice, actually.
I actually see a Sirui lens here, especially if you look at the Iron Star.
Okay, I mean, it's not like anybody invented the wheel here.
If you go to the Iron Star, you will see that the whole focus, But it doesn't matter. I think what we should highlight, first of all, I'm again very surprised to see mounts like the L mount, for example, Z mount, RF mounts that I'm not so sure that the company is authorized to release and do. But who knows? Maybe they have some agreements with the...
Yeah, we're not aware that they're a member of the L-Mount Alliance, for example.
That's right. That's one thing. Second thing is, what really counts here is the price. The upper one, the more expensive one, will be the 35 millimeter, and it's like $299.
Crazy.
You can find others for $279, like, for example, the 50 millimeter, for example.
Yeah.
So the prices are really crazy. We don't have the lens in-house, so we can't vow for the build quality and also the optical quality. But one thing that I do like, that the company is already telling in advance, that this may be, in a way, don't expect superior image quality, like in terms of sharpness. They're already saying that has some character. And sometimes when I hear character, that means that you maybe, I'm just saying maybe, had to compromise something in order to have, let's say, the size a bit more soft and so on. That's very much reminding me some lenses from Sirui, which I think that was the Vista, Sirui Vista. Let me just quickly confirm, because with those names, it's like, that was the Vista that I personally really liked to work with, and they had the same phenomenon. They were not 100% sharp on the sides, but they had this milky look that really gave a character. That's the series. So I can only imagine that those lenses from Seven Artisans will probably exhibit the same kind of phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, here there's just one shot here, which is like a wide-angle shot in their demo video, and it looks kind of sharp on the edges, I have to say. Wait,
Well, we don't know
this one?
the T stop that
Exactly.
they're
Yeah,
using.
maybe it's a
so
T11. That's a good point, actually. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. I mean, that's one of the typical things exhibited at less expensive lenses is basically that the corner sharpness just falls off significantly sometimes.
That's right. And my personal dream, and I know yours too, is one day to be able to test all those lenses for like constructions and optical quality, because I think it's very confusing, especially, you know what, not only for beginners, but also for us professionals. Forget now the name. Let's put the name, the brand name aside. If I see a lens like this, I go, okay, looks nice. Price is really, really great. Do I want to try it? And I might even like it. But unlike in previous years that lenses actually had or were holding really well on value, it looks now that there is no value anymore. Yeah,
It
it
is
like
also just such an inflation of different manufacturers, and especially for manual cine lenses. I mean, I thought we were done with this, to be honest. That
No,
they're still
no.
releasing new ones.
Yeah, I think the market is just waiting for our lens to come out. And when it will come out, it will be completely different. I promise you.
Yeah, exactly.
I promise you.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think this is so oversaturated, and I guess the only way to differentiate yourself at this point, and you know, for those manufacturers, is probably through the price.
Yeah, but that's a race to the bottom.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
of course,
it's like
we
it
see
makes
them.
zero sense.
Yeah, but yeah, what
Innovation.
we're interested in terms of testing is actually blind test. Imagine we had a database of the same type of shots, like 5 different shots, shot with every lens, and then you do like a automated quiz on the website where people always see a couple, and then they have to pick which lens it is, and you see, and you don't no names, no price, nothing. and
But let's
just
make it
shows you.
easier. Only 2 lenses, one high end, one cheap. Because then it's even more evident. If we put too many lenses, I think it's too confusing.
But I mean, basically, like, yeah, I think it's just very complex, of course, because there's many aspects to test.
Of course.
And that makes it very difficult, and
Maybe
especially
one day.
different focal lengths. All right, let's move on to some news from Apple. First of all, bad news. The bad news is that Apple raised the prices of MacBook and iPads.
Why is
This is
that?
a very unusual move for Apple to raise prices like this, and they felt forced to do so because of the AI memory crisis. Now, we've been tracking this development since 2025 when we actually talked to Roman from Angelbird, CEO of Angelbird, who already kind of very early warned us at a trade show that, like, I mean, this is going to be heavy on the whole industry. And he's completely right. I mean, we've seen Sony exiting manufacturing some of their memory cards because of the NAND prices. We've seen a lot of other brands raise prices, and especially any kind of RAM or storage or SSD prices have skyrocketed. The SanDisk stock value has, I think, it's 15 times as expensive as it used to be because of this. It's within a year. It's insane. And we've seen, also some manufacturers already raised prices. Now, with Apple, that means specifically that the MacBook Neo, Apple's lowest price laptop, now starts at $699 instead of $599. That's just months after its March launch. The MacBook Air with 512 gigabytes of storage costs $1299 instead of $1099. The MacBook Pro with 1 terabyte now costs $1,999 instead of $1,699, so $300 price increase overnight. The iPad Air with 128 gigabytes moves from $599 to $749. That's a significant price jump for that as well. So yeah, basically it's a big move, and it's all down to the memory prices. And unfortunately, no sign of this easing. I think we some companies still expect more price increases going into 2027 because more of those data centers are being built. They eat up more of the storage that's available in the market. So, and I mean, Apple didn't really say that there's going to be more price increases, but I mean, if you read between the lines, more price increases could come. They excluded their flagship product, the iPhone, which is, of course, their biggest moneymaker so far. But I wouldn't be surprised if the next generation of iPhones will also be more expensive. So, yeah, that's troubling news.
Absolutely.
And it's really significant. I mean, if you think about it, some of those price increases are more than 20%. That's really, really big jumps. In better Apple news, they have updated Creator Studio, their suite of creative applications. Now, again, just to remind you, the Creator Studio subscription was only introduced in January as a bundle. It's available as a monthly or an annual subscription. Quite affordable. I think we're talking about $129 per year for all the apps, including Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, Motion, Pixelmator Pro, Compressor, and MainStage, or $12.99 per month. But you can still buy each one of those apps, almost all of them, I think, individually. And they also still haven't charged for legacy users, I would say, of Final Cut Pro. I mean, I literally bought Final Cut Pro X when it was still called X, when it came out, 13 years ago. And so far, I have never had to pay for any update, which is amazing, which is, like $300 or euros. And you still get the updates. Now, what have they updated now with? Well, first of all, I have to say what's nice, like even though they're now moving into subscription and, first of all, you can still buy them separately. I hope that remains the case. But what's really cool, you already see what's happening now. They're not updating apps individually anymore. They're updating all of them. And they're also working on integrating them with each other even better. And that's quite cool. There's some really significant things for Final Cut Pro, which a lot of people have missed. First of all, the update now gives you a new generate captions function. Now, we have seen with the last bigger update, alongside the introduction of the creative, the Creator Suite, they have already introduced transcribe to captions. Now they added generate caption. Now, transcribe to captions was already an automatic transcript of whatever, like an interview, but it was always saved as a caption, meaning as metadata. Basically, you could export them as SRT files or whatever, or use them for YouTube and so on, but it wasn't easily possible to convert them into titles. And now this is the case. So now you can generate captions and convert them into titles from your automatic transcript, which means you can also stylize them. You can change different fonts. You can do colors, all kinds of things, which is very useful, of course, also for social content, to just burn those subtitles essentially in and not just have captions. Very useful to have this integrated now as well. And I think that puts Apple on par with Premiere and DaVinci. I'm looking forward to trying this out. Actually, I've had the challenge before where, like you do a workaround through a different app. Now it also has edit detection, which is useful. So like if you have an edited clip and you throw it in, it can now automatically have a cut detection, like also DaVinci. And does Premiere have that? I don't know.
To do
No, like if you have like a finished edit, yeah, it probably has it. So it can now recognize the cuts in a finished video, which is very useful. If you need to do a cut down of something that's already edited. There is also a new feature called, by the way, most of those things are available for both the iPad and the Final Cut version. So, like if you work with Final Cut Pro for iPad, it's also becoming more powerful. Auto mask is something new. We already know that the masking feature, the AI mask feature, which we actually have we have a very nice MZ course about masking, which deals with Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro, and also DaVinci. And we dive into each single one of those functions and how to make it work for you, because it's very powerful to have those AI masking capabilities. Now, Apple is adding something more to the magnetic mask, and it's called auto mask. So what it does, it automatically recognizes kind of elements in an image. So, for example, you don't even have to run the magnetic mask analysis anymore, because just as a reminder how magnetic mask works, you enable it and then you, for example, click on a person and then you would have to track it, but it automatically tracks it through the clip. With AutoMask, it already does that work for you. So it kind of identifies different elements. For example, it would identify the people in a shot. It would identify just the skin of the people in a shot, skin and face, hair, mouth, all different things. Because, of course, very often it's useful just to do grading on individual elements. Let's say, somebody has really dark hair and you want to just lift just the hair a tad. This is now kind of automatic. It's super useful actually to have this built in, and it's called AutoMask. We'll also try that out and probably add a lesson to our MZ course around that, because it's very useful. The match color function has been reworked. Now, I have to say, this is something that never really worked for me so far in most of the NLEs. I've tried this in DaVinci Resolve before. I've tried it in Premiere. I've tried it in Final Cut. It's always a little bit off, because basically you combine different shots and want them to kind of match together, but it's usually different shots from the same shoot, right? And then the color, it needs to recognize the color, and it does a so-so job. Apple says that they've reworked this. We haven't tried it yet, but they say that it produces more accurate and natural color matches across a wider range of footage and lighting conditions, which is useful. I can just hope that it works better. The DaVinci version of this doesn't work for me at all, to be honest. Final Cut analyzes shots to bring them into harmony. And now there is room to refine the results manually, which is, of course, useful. Of course, you can do that with the usual color tools. They've also introduced updates to the trimming. So apparently there's an advanced trimming feature that now lets you fine-tune incoming and outgoing frames one at a time, which is, very useful for dialogue and action edits. And for motion and compressor, there's also been a couple of updates. I'm not a big motion user, but now, a lot of people use this, of course, for motion graphics. There is a native support to keep vector graphics crisp at any resolution, and also a new distribute layers function that Apple says dramatically speeds up the setup of complex animations. Compressor adds an immersive metadata viewer for immersive video, and a 180-degree Apple projected media profile support for Vision Pro, and stereoscopic video preview. So kind of building onto that immersive pipeline around the Vision Pro. Now, Final Cut Camera, the free app for iPhone and iPad, that is like a video app, a little bit a more advanced video app than the default camera app on iPhones, now has finally clean HDMI out, which is useful, of course, if you use an external monitor or recorder next to your iPad, for example. And finally, they have expanded ProRes support. So now you can shoot in ProRes LT and you're not forced to shoot in ProRes 422 or HQ.
Very nice. Any anamorphic support?
I don't think so, but I'll have to check. Probably not, because I guess they only, they don't really have their own anamorphic lenses, of course. So they probably, they don't have that now.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really, it's a free app, right?
It's
so
in
if you
between, basic
exactly, it doesn't go as far as Blackmagic camera app, but it is definitely better to use in terms of usability than the default camera app, because what you can now also do, you can first of all have the expanded codec support is very useful. I would just use ProRes LT when shooting log on the iPhone, because you don't really need 422 HQ. And now you can also disable the digital zoom. So meaning you can guarantee that you only use the actual lenses on the camera, like in the Blackmagic camera app, which is also useful.
But if anybody from Apple is listening, please give us also anamorphic support, because if that's already, it's the direction is right and it's nice. But if I want to be a bit more creative and do something a little bit with the look, it would be nice to be able to de-squeeze the image while filming.
Of course, there's more updates also to the other apps. I'm just going to mention the ones that are relevant for filmmakers specifically, like Pixelmator Pro, which is, of course, kind of like a Lightroom/Photoshop competitor. And as you remember, we reported about Apple acquiring the company behind Pixelmator and now integrating it into their suite. They now have a integration with Final Cut Pro. So Final Cut Pro users on Mac can now send a chosen frame directly to Pixelmator Pro, build a custom thumbnail or social graphic and drop it back into the timeline without breaking the flow. So you don't need to go through the Finder, which is useful. And this round tripping also means if you update that in the other app, it also automatically updates in Final Cut. So that's very useful. I mean, that's something we know that Adobe does quite well. When you use a PSD file in Premiere, you can select the layers and you change that PSD file in Photoshop and it would update automatically in Premiere. And that now also kind of works with Pixelmator and Final Cut. And the same is true if you round trip with Keynote, Pages, and Numbers with Pixelmator Pro as well. Yeah, I really want to get into Pixelmator. I think that sounds really like a useful piece of software that does a lot of things that we probably don't need Photoshop for anymore.
What I read from that is that basically, if you look from the outside, Blackmagic Design, Apple, and Adobe are really busy in enhancing their software on like every few weeks, months, we hear something. Unlike it used to be much slower, the pace was slower, but now it's either that you have to satisfy the stockholders or the boss.
Well, I think that's a hope that I said when we talked about the introduction of Creator Studio is like a lot of people give a lot of pushback for subscription, which I understand. But as long as you can buy the standalone versions, I'm fine with it. And also, honestly, the price is really amazing compared to what Adobe charges, for example. But of course, creating a subscription also immediately creates a need to update it more regularly, because now they have recurring revenue.
Yeah.
And we know that Apple has been hard at work to build a very much growing services business, which you see in their results. Every quarter, they grow and grow and grow, and it's become a significant moneymaker for them. And that's the good thing about this. So they finally, hopefully, can dedicate more resources to developing those apps. Yeah, there's also a lot of updates to Keynote, Pages, and Numbers, which is, of course, all of them are free. I'm not going to dive into that. There's also updates to Logic Pro for various, like audio enhancements. Beat Breaker and Chord ID has been rebuilt for more accurate harmonic analysis, and so on. So all for audio people. Yeah, again, price is the same, $12.99 per month or $129 per year for all those apps. And you can still buy Final Cut Pro at $300 or $299.99, and Logic Pro $200, and Pixelmator Motion Compressor for $50 each. So yeah, this is already out now. Let's move on to a review. We had a written review by our dear contributor Jeff on the XPPen Pilot Pro, which is a versatile editing controller, which he says is very versatile, but not for everyone.
That's right. First of all, I want to highlight that Jeff really did a great job here. He's a qualified editor. He's also grading his own footage on a professional basis. And he's a working professional.
And he's editing basically all our show coverage.
That's right. He's very fast.
NAB,
he's very
IBC,
accurate. He's a very nice person. He's French. I would say he's French, but he's a very nice person.
Yeah, don't hold it against him. Now we get bad joking. Comments from all the French people. We love French people.
Yeah. Especially after the football game yesterday. I mean, they're playing so good, the French team. Yeah. It's amazing to see such an harmonic team playing together. Maybe we can see, maybe Jeff can also join the team. I have no clue.
Okay.
But all in all, seriously speaking, this device, it's nice to see that there are not so many companies that are making those type of, let's call them, editing mouse, in a way, and
especially ones that work for every platform.
That's right. But in here, it's a good and a bad thing in a way, because what it means that it's when Jeff wrote versatile, he meant that if you're doing a variety of work with a mouse like this. Yeah, and let me just go straight into the verdict, because that's where he's very clear with wording here.
Well, he works. I think he also means
Yeah,
he works with a different. There's presets for all kinds of NLEs.
Yeah, but if you're doing different things like streaming, video editing, photo editing, a bit of color grading, all of those things, you will find this controller very versatile and good for you. But if you're really more into a specific task, it might be lacking a little bit. And I have to say that we submitted all our findings to the company behind. It's always interesting for us to see how a company react to some to feedback that we give. And I have to say that they were very open to hear, and they try to also explain and also make it it caused us to see if we can work in different ways in order to really see that what they are letting us know is really correct in some ways. But they are very determined to improve the product, and it doesn't matter if it's this one or the second generation. Yeah, one thing is to just let you know, if you're left hand like me, that means that you probably have to work and edit with. I have the controller on the right hand. That's not for you, so forget it. So that's really for people who are working with the left hand and they are actually right hand.
Okay, right hand.
So so
only 9 out of 10 people can use it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm. It still drives me crazy when I have to hold the water can, and like, what's the problem to make on both sides? Like, but that's a different thing.
Lefties problems. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jeff, in a way, as I said, that if you're into something very specific, that might not be really for you. But if you're dealing with a variety of things or a variety of softwares, you might find it useful for you. And of course, it's. Sorry?
Yeah, no, what I liked about his review is, first of all, he really talked about, I mean, he's been using these devices for a very long time. He shared a photo of actually his IBC setup in the press room there, where he used still a Logitech device, I think. And I mean, he's going through all the devices he used over the years and where they worked and didn't work for him. And many times he actually had issues with the size, because it's very hard to travel with some of them. That's not the case with this one. I mean, the XPPen is relatively small and you can travel with it. I mean, it has 19 buttons, which is, I think, from what I read from his review, is good and bad. You can be very custom with it, but of course you can very easily accidentally hit a button you don't want to hit. There's a jog wheel joystick on top,
which is also sometimes not that useful in a way.
Depends on what you need it for. But yeah, it's a very detailed written review if you are in the market for such a device. And also, don't forget, this is only $200. I mean, we're not talking about a very expensive device at all. I mean, it's basically the same price as a higher end mouse. I mean, there are mouses out there for $300, like a gaming mouse that has a lot of buttons. So I would actually compare it to that. But yeah, I mean, very much worth diving into if you've ever thought about getting a device like this, but have probably hesitated to buy one which is specific just to, let's say, DaVinci from Blackmagic Design or something else. This is worth taking a look at because it might work for you for various pieces of software.
Yeah. I think if you're really editing professionally, this type of device would be very much appreciated, because obviously and apparently it can really speed up work. So this is something to consider.
And what's really cool, I think their software seems to be quite comprehensive, and they have so many existing presets for existing NLEs and kind of software. That's, if I bought something like this would be the main thing for me to check, because nothing annoys me most than spending 3 hours to set it up. And I want a starting point for the default functions for my NLE. And then as I'm working with it, I realize what works and what doesn't work. And then I would change the settings. That's really important for me, actually.
You called it a mouse. Give it a cheese. It will work out. Finished.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Moving on to software news. So there's a new iPhone app, which is called LIGHTFRAMER PRO, which is a cinema viewfinder with sun tracking at the same time. Now, I forgot what the name is. Sunseeker, right?
Yeah,
Sunseeker. I
there's
use Sunseeker a lot for actually checking the position of the sun for a shoot. Very useful app. Same kind of thing. You see exactly where in the sky the sun will be at a specific time, on a specific day. And this is a new app that kind of combines the sun's position with a viewfinder app, which is of course useful. So you can already kind of set the focal length you'd be using with the camera you would be kind of using, set the aspect ratio, and already get a preview of that, which is a really smart combination because as far as I know, there is no app, or at least I wasn't aware of another app that combines those two things in one. And now, again, we haven't tried this. This is just a news post, but I think this is definitely something I want to try because if you look at all those things around the screen that you have there, you can set the white balance, you can set the aspect ratio, you can set the exact kind of prime and camera you'd be using. You even seem to have some coloring options, and on top of that, just the sun position for whenever you will shoot. Very useful, I think, for also planning out your shoot when you're scouting. And it's using LiDAR-based focus tools, so you can have a focus heat map using the depth information to visualize depth of field, acceptable focus, and so on. That's very, very useful. Now, pricing-wise, this is a one-time purchase, which is nice. $20, $19.99 or €29.99, depending on your region. I think I'll give this a go because this sounds like a smart
Or you want
enhancement.
to wait because I'm working on a cloud tracker app.
On a cloud tracker app?
Yeah. Well, look, this is the sun tracker. I'm working on a cloud tracker. You think I might be able to sell some, or too ambitious?
I would say if you dive into Claude Code, you can make everything.
Everything, any tracker you want.
I mean, honestly, this is something I don't know how you feel, but I feel like we are getting so many more emails from filmmakers that have started making apps. And this is all down to the fact that app development has become a lot more easy with
accessible. You have an idea, you feed it.
Things like Claude Code or Codex. It's amazing. We will. I mean, there's going to be more next week. We already, have a couple of emails from people who've emailed us about different pieces of software that they've worked on, which are very specific for filmmakers. Some of them extremely niche, but there's more coming. Yeah, we'll report about them. All right, let's talk about two acquisitions. Specifically, we've talked about Mark Roberts' motion control, MRMC, has been sold by Nikon a couple months ago. Then they were bought by a venture capital company that kind of liquidated it 6 weeks after already. And now the assets of the company, Mark Roberts Motion Control, have been bought by MultiDyne. Now, that's, I guess, good news for the industry because MultiDyne, for those of you who don't know, the company is called MultiDyne Video and Fiber Optic Systems. They are headquartered in New York and are 50 years old. Now, honestly, I've heard the name. I've seen them on trade shows. I was not familiar with them because they were very much in the broadcast field. For those 5 decades, they have focused on the transport, processing, and management of video, audio and data signals across broadcast, digital cinema, pro AV, and live production. Fiber optic transport, camera interfaces, signal processing products, so that kind of stuff. And it's an asset purchase, so they have bought the assets like probably all the hardware, the different product lines that they have. And the funny thing is, because they're called MultiDyne, now the brand MRMC will continue, but it will not be standing for Mark Roberts Motion Control anymore. It will stand for MultiDyne Robotics and Motion Control, which is a very smart way of carrying it forward. Unfortunately, the founder's name gets lost, but people will remember. And so all the core technologies, intellectual property, and manufacturing capabilities will continue. And we already saw a lot of relieved customers and in our audience of their robots to hear that.
We don't know if some people will have to leave work or... Okay, there is no
I
information
mean,
about it.
the thing is, one of the more reassuring details is that they plan to maintain operations in the UK, preserving engineering expertise, product innovation, and customer relationships there. Yeah, so let's see. I don't actually know where the manufacturing was, to be honest, because originally they're from Australia, right? Mark Roberts. Motion
I
Control
think
was.
the original, like it was Australian, but I think then it was UK based.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't think they had anything in Australia still. But yeah, I mean, it's let's see what will happen. We also know, like this robot field, I think there's still a lot of potential here. They also MRMC has moved into smaller and more precise, but also more affordable robots, like the Cinebot Nano, only a couple of years ago. So we can just hope that this will become more affordable, because we all know, just even for tabletop stuff, it would be extremely useful to have more like robots like that are more accessible. So let's hope the best for MultiDyne.
It's interesting to see how this will develop.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. Big applause for these guys. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of, it's an industry purchase. It's very similar to what we saw with ARRI and Riedel, because Riedel also being a broadcast infrastructure provider, MultiDyne seems to be in a similar field, also kind of salvaging more like a cinema brand here. So there are definitely parallels to be seen. Less parallels here with the Topaz Labs acquisition by Adobe. Now, Topaz Labs is most known and renowned for image upscaling. They definitely have the best image upscaling models out there, both for video and photos, which already have been deeply integrated in Adobe products. You had the Topaz upscaler is in Photoshop and everywhere. And now they have announced that they are planning to acquire Topaz Labs. So that's...
Is it good or bad for us users?
Well, we know, we've seen it with Frame.io, we've seen it with other things that Adobe has acquired. They will continue to exist as a separate product for a while, but let's see how long. And I don't think it's great because, it's just Adobe, of course, has to satisfy their shareholders. Which
were not so impressed, by the way.
Well, for this, there was a small uptick after this, but it might be down to this. But if you look at the past 6 months, I shared a screenshot here in the article, they've lost 42.6% of their stock value. Adobe, of course, is under pressure from a lot of other tools in the market that are, like Canva that acquired Affinity, which is now for free. And we see, companies like Blackmagic Design putting photo editing functions into DaVinci Resolve, which in its base version is also free. So they are under pressure. Of course, all the AI image editing that can now be done without actually ever using Photoshop. I mean, you can do image editing in a chatbot now with using diffusion models. So it is they're under pressure from different sides, but still I would say it's fair to say that they, especially in the photo editing, they still have the king there with Photoshop and Lightroom, but different companies are eating into their business from different sides. And the question is, how long can they push the AI story inside their own products with Firefly until people realize, well, we can do this without Adobe software?
I mean, a few things are very clear for me. First of all, Adobe is not a popular company among users. People simply don't like Adobe.
Well, because of their subscription policies. Yeah,
but we've been burned with this more than once, I have to say. And it's like there's nobody to talk to. But it seems to be from the outside a very greedy company. That's one thing. And the second thing is that they put all their jetons on AI. It looks like they're so much heavily invested in AI that if that, from whatever reason, will not be successful, I really wonder what will be there for them to do afterwards. So,
I mean, they have to. Well, I think they just have to go with the times. To be honest, I mean, if they ignored the whole AI thing, they would have been in more trouble. But so they try to integrate, and I have to say things like, for example, the I mean, every day I use things like automatic masking. I mean, it works amazing. When I think about the amount of hours in my life that I've spent isolating objects on photos before, subject recognition was there, or expanding photos like this generative expand if you need the right format of a photo, but now also video. I mean, I haven't used it for video, but for photos, it's extremely useful, those things. But again, I think a lot of the design functionalities, and we know in general, I think big chunks of the photography, also video, but specifically photography and graphic design markets are under pressure because a lot of companies just simply don't use photographers anymore. They don't use designers anymore. Even you were talking about watching the football World Cup. You will have seen in the commercial breaks, every second ad is AI generated. I mean, it literally is from start to finish. Everything you see there is AI generated, which of course is a trouble for a lot of us too as filmmakers. So, and I think Adobe is just part of this, because part of the problems that creatives have with the emerging AI, on top of course, more opportunities and time saving, is also that some things will erode in terms of like how things are done creatively, and that also affects Adobe as a company. So I understand what they're doing with the AI tools, but I agree, I'm not sure if it's going to be something that's sustainable, in a sense that, there are alternatives now also with subscriptions, like even if you just look at Apple, like with a Creator Studio, I think if you really dive into Final Cut and Pixelmator Pro and you understand what it can do, I think a lot of people will probably realize I don't need Photoshop anymore, and I don't need Premiere Pro anymore. And the same is true, of course, for DaVinci Resolve. So it's just a different market. Yeah.
I'm just surprised because it's a public company, and actually there was no financial terms disclosed yet.
Because it's an announcement of their intention. We will see this as soon as it happens. No later than the following quarterly results will have to include the details about this, but it's not. They just announced that they are going to do this, and it's like a preliminary thing.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, moving on to small things. AtomOS actually updated their operating system called AtomOS to 12.7 for Ninja Raw, Ninja TX, and Ninja TX Go. And this basically introduces RAW support for the A7R6, the EOS R6V, and the Leica SL3-P. It's nice to see how fast AtomOS reacts to those new cameras being released. I mean, I think the Sony one was that 1.5 months ago. We already have an update now to record external RAW. Now, as we know from Sony cameras, so far, no internal RAW recording. Now you can externally record RAW using an AtomOS product. And there's some more improvements which are, they say improved CF Express card compatibility. I guess there have been some issues with some brands. And there's now the option to disable camera to cloud uploads while recording, and a fix for UHD to HD output downscaling at 23.98 and 24 frames per second. There has been a bug that I remember somebody complained about also in our audience before. So it's nice to see they do some nice housekeeping with these updates. And then let's move on to ARRI introducing another software product, actually. So basically, ARRI introduced the LUKA Unreal Engine plugin. This is, as it says, a plugin for the Unreal Engine for virtual production and also planning of shoots. Basically, what ARRI did, they put its entire lighting and camera catalog into Unreal Engine as accurate virtual replicas, which is, of course, very useful. So now you can build and test a full lighting and camera setup before you enter the stage. And that is something that is becoming much more useful, of course. There's a free 3-month trial. It's Windows only, and of course it's targeted at commercial customers. So why this actually matters is this is not another previous tool. It's that the lighting and the camera live in the same scene. So basically, a lighting pre-visualization alone lies, right? Because a lamp looks great until the lens stop and exposure show up. That has always been the problem. Now, with this Luka tool, you can force those decisions to happen together, which is now, there's less arguing between DPs and gaffers on set and less walking around, because you really already know exactly what it will look like before you enter the set. The virtual fixtures are built from ARRI's own photometric data, not generic 3D lights. There's 21 light actors, and they also went deep on the history. They also included some discontinued lights that are in there. They don't even sell them anymore, but you can use them virtually, knowing that you can rent them, right? So you need them. Of course, the caveat here, the accuracy claims are from ARRI. We haven't verified them. We also won't verify them, but I trust them that, like working so much in the high end, they actually know what they're doing here. DMX, ArtNet, SACN integration, and so basically it's a lighting program you can design in the virtual world and then save it and then push it to the physical gear on set. There is no sensor noise simulation yet. So the exposure index you can do is not reflecting the real grain that you will have, but I guess that's a small thing. That's DMX coverage is broad but incomplete. And the bar, it's really detailed in terms of like how close you can go to the actual final result with the virtual thing here. But again, this is another example how you can see. This was also something that we talked about when we did the interview at NAB with Thomas Riedel and David Bernbach and Chris Richter, the managing directors of ARRI. When we talked about the future of ARRI, they hinted a lot at software business, like service business, growing that. This is just an example of how they are aiming to do this. So it's all about more integration with their hardware with software, which of course makes a lot of sense. Kind of recurring revenue, like Apple is doing also with their services, makes a lot of sense, of course. And just kind of control everything, from one source, basically. So makes a lot of sense. So the ARRI LUKA plugin is now available, I think, already. Let me just scroll down here. Yeah, it's Windows only. Unfortunately, it's not available for Mac, and I don't actually have exact pricing details here, but there is a 3-month trial. You can try it out for free. And so check it out. Moving on to another software update, DaVinci Resolve has been updated to 21.01, just a small update. They say they have improved raw decoding, better HDR delivery, and also AtomOS support for the Sony Alpha 7R6, which, as we've seen in the lab test, is a very capable camera also for video. The raw decoding is now more accurate in order to support more consistent color. What exactly wasn't exact before, we don't know, but I guess it's enhanced. And nice is just simply the support for the raw stills, because we know now they have the photo page. So now they also need to update DaVinci all the time when new cameras come out. So the raw stills from the A7R6 are also supported. HDR delivery that televisions actually recognize is a headline as well. So the H.265 HDR renders now include improved HDR metadata handling. So those exported files are more reliably recognized at HDR automatically by TVs to switch into HDR mode. And they also said there were some reliability improvements for the AI Cine focus, and of course a lot of small fixes as usual. Now available on the Blackmagic Design website for both the studio and free versions. And then we reported about a piece of software which is called rsv.repair by a company called AtomOS. Isn't that the company that we did an interview with them, remember, at I think IBC 2 years ago, when they had this nice little case together with another company, this offloading case. I think
Okay,
this
those young guys?
German company. Yeah, there was AtomOS who did the software part, and then the other guys, forgot the name, that did this offloading case.
Yeah, that was with awesome pixels.
Exactly. And so these guys, the AtomOS guys, just released this piece of software. And this is by DIT Ben Hagen, who is the lead developer at AtomOS. And it's, of course, it's not a Sony tool. It's a third-party recovery tool that can help you fix interrupted recordings from Sony cameras. Now, as somebody who uses Sony cameras, I've been there before. As far as I remember, what I've used when I had a broken RSV file before, it was some online tool where you pay like $50 for one repair. It worked, but it was expensive. Now, this one is free, as far as I know, and you can literally just, save it for free, and it's amazing. And we had an amazing amount of comments on this on Instagram and Facebook, because a lot of people seem to be burned before. So basically, you can drop in your RSV, check the preview, already see the recovered footage, and then click Fix Video, and that's it. And it's free. And you can just download it from rsv.repair. There's been a lot of likes on this. It is browser-based, but it is, it's free. I mean, what are you complaining about? And it's like, they actually have a nice stats here, how many files they've restored, how much footage they've recovered, and how much data was actually recovered since they launched the tool on the website.
But
Very
that sounds
nice.
a little bit like a bottleneck to upload the footage for repair.
Well, the question
actually, how
is,
can you-
no,
how
it's
can
not
you-
uploaded. It is a browser. Honestly, this looks, knowing what Claude spits out when you make automatic websites and stuff like that. This is probably also something that was made aided by AI, and it's not actually uploading. It uses the browser itself, but it's
Okay.
not uploading. We've seen
Of
this
course,
before.
because you
also.
can't upload the damaged file because it's damaged. You can't access it.
Yeah, but we've seen this also with tools like Film AI and so on. They also
Okay.
don't upload the footage. They use the browser engine to change it. So it's basically, of course, it would be nice to have a standalone app, but so you can just drop it into the browser. It's not uploading the file. It says nothing is uploaded, and then So anyway, cool that it exists. RSV repair, it's free to use. KIPON released a drop-in variable ND-PL mount adapter, which has a deep recessed design. Why does that matter? We've seen a lot of those adapters, of course. That is for Z-mount cameras and Sony E-mount cameras, and it's a PL adapter. You can drop in a variable ND filter from KIPON. What's special about this one is that the way it's designed, it supposedly supports a lot of lenses, PL mount lenses, that have this protruding PL element that doesn't fit with a lot of existing mounts. I mean, I've had the problem before using an Engineer PL lens, and I couldn't use it on an E-mount camera. So that's quite useful. And of course, variable ND filter, it's not electronic, but it's variable with a little wheel, works with two polarizers, moving against each other, circular polarizers. And yeah, that's very useful.
It's expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it's $700.
KIPON's prices are in general quite expensive. They're very proud to have quality equipment, and this particular one is actually made in Japan.
Yeah.
But the official price list is $700.
Yeah, but you can get 15% discount if you bundle it with their 0.7x Pro Lock adapter for Mamiya 654 lenses. Anyway, it's
so I'm going to buy something
to buy something
more
else.
expensive in order that I don't even have, maybe in order to get 15% discount.
No, but it's just nice to have the opportunity to now, also have a behind the lens variable ND for those PL
Absolutely.
lenses that are actually have this protruding element. This was very limiting before.
Yeah.
iFootage Shark Slider Pico Pro has been released with a higher payload. Now, we've reported about the Shark Slider Pico before, I think at IBC 25.
Yeah.
It's a really nice motion control slider. I have to say they kind of revived that whole slider category for me. I mean, you can combine this with an Osmo Pocket 3, I think, probably also 4 and 4P, and really have a little motion control slider here. Now, the new one actually builds on the Shark Slider Pico and simply has a higher payload capacity. Let's look what the higher payload actually is, what we're talking about. So the standard Pico, well, the weight is actually almost the same. Funny enough, the Pico Pro is a little bit lighter at 0.82 kilograms, 0.82 kilograms, less than a kilo, or just below 2 pounds. And just trying, they're replacing the digital screen with the LCD color screen, which is useful, of course. Let me just look at the standard Pico supports up to 1.1 kilogram or 2.4 pounds horizontally, and the Pico Pro now 1.5 kilograms. So a small gain, but 1.5 kilos can make a big difference if you use a mirrorless camera with a heavier lens.
Sure. But what is your take? Why do you think that those small sliders disappeared from the market? I'm still working. I'm happy. Of course, it's a very old device, but for those small moves, if you know how to construct your image, it doesn't look like a 30 centimeters slider.
I think the emergence of gimbals has just really, a lot of people just don't bring them on set anymore because they use gimbals. And I agree with you. If you have a longer focal length and a small movement, a gimbal might be harder to operate for that. Of course, it's a lot more flexible than a slider. But I agree. I mean, I also personally haven't used a slider in a long time, and I used to use sliders quite a lot. And I mean, I still use them for interviews on a B camera if, like for the close-up or something, because of course it would not be useful to do that with a gimbal if it's a long interview. But I understand why. I think I also rather bring the gimbal often to be more flexible.
Okay.
But yeah, there's still uses for that. It's the same with the small jib arms. When is the last time you used a jib arm? I used to bring jib arms all the time on shoots, these little small foldable ones. Yeah. It's also a trend. I mean, it's like everybody uses gimbals. So even clients expect you to use a gimbal, I guess. I don't know. But if you look at the price, it's amazing. The standard one seems to be only $200 and the Pro version is $300. So considering you get something electronic that has a motion control capability with pre-programmable motion, all built in without extra wires and stuff, that's really cool. Yeah. Last piece of news for this week. Canon released firmware updates to the EOS C50, C80, and C400. The firmware 1041 is now available for the C50, 1061 for the C80 and C400. We have reviews and lab tests for all of those cameras. Check them out. They're linked in the article. And the main update is now you have external controls of some of the camera functions via USB. There's going to be automatic reconnection attempts for SRT protocol streaming, which is, of course, very useful if you're streaming, and a revised level indicator that changes color when the camera is level, which is really cool. So It's kind of the built-in level, and some fixes for smartphone USB recognition, and then a lot of other small improvements. Those updates are now available for free on Canon's regional support pages. And I think we can wrap it up.
Absolutely.
Here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Johnnie.
Thank you, Nino.
And see you next week. Please leave a comment on the YouTube video or email us at podcast@cined.com. And don't forget to also subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you, and hear you next week.